What are indicators in adults that suggest they experience neglect during childhood? Most comments here are probably referring to young adults 20-30s. Everyone has that one relative family friend that just has no way of expressing emotions. Fathers are usually like that, never sharing sadness or much happiness. But that's just generational neglect and trauma. Their dad probably was the same, and that's the only way they know how to be. My therapist said people who come across as easygoing and convenient with everything sometimes do so in order to not be a burden to others. Like, we learned our needs are burdens as children. Really mind-opening. I'm less likely to be a yes man now to my detriment. Being very good at things that help other people, like de-escalating fights and making food, but useless at things that only benefit themselves, like self-advocacy and toothbrushing. You see what their parents thought was and wasn't worth teaching. Both of my parents have been neglected in their childhood, but in very different ways and situations. My mum is very overprotective, needs to know my every move, etc. My dad always thinks of the worst-case scenario and is hyper-independent. Some older relatives I know experienced major neglect, at least emotionally, and were often left alone or extremely entitled and socially inept. Slightly narcissistic. Not sure what the causation is there though. I will start paying closer attention to my actions and report back. I know for me there is an assumption that all relationships are fleeting and being desperately terrified of that fact. Almost every one of these describes me to a T, and I definitely wasn't neglected as a child. So don't assume that any of them mean that someone was. Just that the possibility exists. They develop fearful, anxious, avoidant attachment styles in relationships, or possibly develop borderline personality disorder, which causes the mental hell. Adults who experience neglect may have trust issues and may be hesitant to open up or rely on others due to past experiences of betrayal or abandonment. This is a more subtle one, but I've read and do this myself sleeping with the TV on. It gives a sense of security when falling asleep. Difficulty setting and maintaining boundaries in relationships, leading to feelings of being taken advantage of or exploited by others. Adults who experience neglect may struggle to form and maintain healthy relationships due to trust issues or attachment difficulties. Low self-worth or struggle with feelings of inadequacy, stemming from a lack of emotional support and validation during childhood. Having an insecure attachment style, being out of touch with your feelings and had no one to teach you how to regulate them. People-pleasing, being unable to ask for help, always trying to be prepared for any kind of calamity or lack of resources. These comments hit me hard. I feel like I've been doing all these things my entire life. Wow. Eye-opening. Hyper-independence. Not wanting to ask anyone for help may include difficulty accepting kindness or gifts. I experienced neglect during childhood is a dead giveaway. I kid if I do have a point. An inability to accept positive attention. Attention results in the question, what do you want from me? Any maladjusted behaviors that significantly impair their jobs and or interpersonal relationships. For me, food needs to be divided fairly. Trouble opening up. Problems with letting people help me. Food insecurity, people-pleasing, being worried all the time about doing the wrong thing. Bitterness and often a need to belong to an organized religion. If they act childish, often almost to relive their childhood without all the bad parts. A flat back of the head usually means they were left in their crib or never picked up. Every response is describing me, and now I can see how much childhood have shaped me. Having only one or two strong memories of good times you spent alone with a parent. Developing really intense emotions towards animals, particularly mistreated ones. Lack of communication, emotional immaturity or inability to regulate emotion. They are always worried about food and clothes. They're usually holders when they've been parentified and still are more mature than their parents. I read maybe the first 20 comments and everyone describes me LOL. Apologizing all the time. Stressed when feeling misunderstood. When this question is asked for the 8th time in 3 weeks. Difficulty maintaining healthy relationships with others. When they post this exact same question for times a week.